everybody, and welcome to another episode of Unlocking Kingdom Hearts. I'm your host, Cameron Hawkins, and alongside me are two fine gentlemen. We have editorial manager at Naughty Dog, Jonathan Dornbush. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Very happy to be here, talking about a very great game in this franchise, but we'll get
Very
into all
great
that
game.
as we go. Yeah.
And from youtube.com/PlayStation Source and IGN, we got Kevin Diaz.
Greetings.
How you doing?
Doing good. Hanging out. Chilling. I do. You guys remember when you guys beat this game? Was it like recently or
months ago? Months ago.
Yeah.
I think I was the last one that needed to beat it. I was the one that was slacking, and that was like in January.
I think I finished in January too.
February? Yeah. Okay.
I think I finished in January.
I think like February or March maybe then.
Okay.
And like
I was gonna say around the holidays sometime, so that makes sense.
yeah, and and I wanted to just transition into this. Like, I know I said when we started this podcast that like episodes were gonna come out when they were gonna come out. I definitely did not want it to take this long. Literally, there hasn't been an episode in 6 months. That's not.
Has it really?
That was not. Yeah, since October. Yeah,
Oh,
it hasn't.
shit.
That has not. That was never supposed to be that long. It's just that like personally speaking for myself, I had a lot of like life stuff going on. And Alexa, which is why she's not with us this episode. She's got a lot of stuff going on that she wasn't able to make it this episode. And for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, we were planning on recording, and then she couldn't do it. And she just like kept on insisting, go on without me. And I finally broke down. I was like, okay, fine. We'll do this one episode without you. But we miss you dearly.
Indeed.
But yeah, so we're here to talk about we're going back 10 years before the events of the original Kingdom Hearts with Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep originally released on the PlayStation Portable on September 7th, 2010. And then it later got released in the final mix in America in like 2012 or something like that, 2011, 2012 on the PS3. And now it's just like readily available everywhere. You know what I mean? Basically I wanted to kind of go over the voice cast really quick of the main cast of characters because they're like pretty well known compared to other mainline Kingdom Hearts games. So we have the main trio of Terra, Aqua, and Ventus. And Terra is voiced by Jason Doring. He's the one I'm not familiar with. He's prominent on Veronica Mars. He had a role in iZombie, the originals, if you watch the originals. But yeah, he's the voice of Terra. Ventus is again Jesse McCartney, who voices Roxas because they look the same. They're they're playing with us in that sense. And then Aqua's voiced by Willa Holland, who was Thea Queen in Arrow, which shout out to my Arrow
that's your
fans
reference.
out there.
Okay.
Oh, what's your reference?
The OC.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't watch the
yeah.
OC, so I wouldn't know. For me, she's Thea Queen.
No, that's fair. I think that is the more recent and probably well known for most people. I'm totally blanking because there was a funny part about her role in it, but I think she was Marissa's sister in the OC.
Okay.
Tangentially two important characters, but yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And then she became more prominent.
To the OC fans out there. And then we got Mickey Mouse, King Mickey coming back. But this time it's voiced by Brett Iwan. Unfortunately, the original voice, Wayne something, Wayne Allwine, unfortunately passed away between the events of Kingdom Hearts 2 or Kingdom Hearts 358 and Birth by Sleep. So Brett Iwan is now the current voice of Mickey Mouse since then. And then the last two, we have Master Ericus, voiced by Luke Skywalker himself,
Yes,
Mark
sir.
Hamill,
Wild.
baby. And then Master Xehanort, who originally and for the longest time voiced by the late Leonard Nimoy, Spock from Star Trek, if you don't know who Leonard Nimoy is. Yeah. And it, gosh, that's a whole nother topic about Xehanort's recastings throughout the series after he passes. But this is the OG Xehanort. Like when you think Xehanort, you're thinking Leonard Nimoy's voice for sure. But yeah, so we want to go. What we're gonna do is we're gonna break down each story and go one by one. For those that are tuning in and maybe haven't played the game yet, the stories are split into 3 for each character, and there's kind of like converging paths that happen throughout the story. So you might do like the same thing, but it's like a different character. You'll run into a character when they're leaving a world and they're arriving. Like it kind of plays with that a little bit for and it's fun. And so we're going to start with Terra's story because Terra is I just kind of go in order, and I think that the order of which they present it, Terra, Ventus, and Aqua, is the best way to play it, especially when you get to the final and secret episodes, because those are all in the POV of Aqua. Like Aqua is like the character you're controlling. But I don't remember if I said this in the last episode going into Birth by Sleep, but I've always seen Birth by Sleep as like the Revenge of the Sith of this series, where like Kingdom Hearts 1 is A New Hope, you know. I wouldn't say that 2 is The Empire Strikes Back outside of it being the best like entry of each respective series, but like this is where you see our heroes lose. The heroes lose in this game, and which leads to the hope that is Sora, Riku, you know, and the whole gang. Spoilers. But yeah, so Terra is like kind of like the leader of the group, right? Like he's kind of like the one that both Ventus and Aqua turn to. Terra and Aqua have been training with Master Ericus at the Land of Departure to be a Keyblade Master. And the game starts with the 2 of them taking their Mark of Mastery exam, their Mark of Mastery, and Master Xehanort is there as well as a friend of Ericus to judge their performance, and he basically tampers with the test and makes it so that things go awry. And during the test, Terra is unable to contain the darkness within him, and because of that, he fails the Mark of Mastery exam, according to Master Ericus, and Aqua passes. And you know, he gets upset. Master Ericus or Xehanort basically tells him that, like, you know, I would have, if I had the call, you would have been you would have passed. Having darkness inside you doesn't mean that, you know, you're bad, things like that. He's just kind of like, he starts beginning this manipulation of Terra, and to the point where Terra ends up basically leaving the Land of Departure unannounced to like explore the world and better himself, and all that jazz. And then Ventus and Aqua go after them for their own reasons. So when it comes to the game, so basically the gameplay, what this game does, which is cool, that I think this is the perfect game for too, is that, and this was something that people I think really wanted after Kingdom Hearts 2, was that we got a lot of the worlds based off the princesses, specifically like the original princesses, you know, Snow White, Aurora, and Cinderella. And those are kind of like the 3 first beginning worlds that you travel to. What did you guys think of those worlds in the series, and how like they kind of like tease the setup into the story of Kingdom Hearts 1, where they're capturing the princesses for Kingdom Hearts? Jonathan?
We'll go with the caveat that I definitely want to hear from Kevin, who is most new to all of this. And so I think for me, what's really interesting is one of the things that I love and hate about this, not hate, but like love and wish was different, was that I always wish, especially now over time, that this wasn't a PSP game. I wish this had gotten a console treatment and had been given the scale that I think it needs, because I think these worlds are great in conception. I think especially in my first memory of them playing on PSP, and I think that lives up a little bit now, is there's a little bit of spareness to them. Like the spaces can be a little bit spare, in the sense that I wish they could be more bustling, because like you can feel like there's a majesty waiting to happen there.
Kind of like Kingdom Hearts, kind of like Kingdom Hearts 2, right? Like a lot of people, some people really like how the worlds in the first game were more of a 3D platformer, in the sense, while 2 it was more broad and open, but there was just it just felt like that it was bigger in comparison. They kind of took away the platforming in the sense of size.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, because of the PSP's limitations, like they do so much with what they had to work with. And so I think it's one of those things where like I can feel the I guess tension of they're clearly wanting to do more, but I do think that's just my like one caveat of I've had this thought since I first played this game however many years ago. But I do think I really appreciate that it gets back to that classic feel that like of Disney wise. I do think there's something to that there's almost not a pristineness, but like a classical level of art and beauty that you think of when you think of that old Disney stuff. And I think they do a really great job of imbuing these levels with that and with the feeling that I think back on those movies. Because obviously those, especially the first Disney classics with the princesses, way before any of our times, and they still live up, especially in animation, in so many ways today. So I think they do a really great job of capturing the mood and the tone and the vibe of all of those. I think for me, it's always just that thing of like, I always was like, oh yeah, we should be able to go to all the princesses, and I'm like, oh, I wish we could then have seen them do like their best foot forward with it, like the best version possible. But I think what they do here works really well, and I think I always, both having revisited it more recently and then originally when it came out, really appreciated what they were able to pull off with the technology that they had at their hands.
Right.
Yeah. Go on, Kev.
Yeah. I got similar thoughts where like I remember like vividly like I think you're at Cinderella's. It's I think Cinderella's where like you go into the ballroom and it's supposed to be like a bustling like there's supposed to be like a ballroom going on, and it's just an open space, and it's like, okay, right, yeah, like the game definitely reminds you a lot like that, like, hey, like this was on PSP, right? But like I still found an appreciation to it, and just in terms of it, I think like visually holding up for what it was, and I assume that there were with it being the remix versions, right, that like I think there is probably some different assets being used here than on PSP. Y'all can let me know that, because I played this on the collection of it.
Yeah,
right?
they remastered it. Like the visuals
right.
are the main thing, and like and I was gonna kind of touch upon it too, just like in general, that like I think it's hard to argue that this is like one of the best PSP games in the PSP library. Like I think that there's very few like that come like on the same level, if not transcends it. Like Peace Walker is just one that comes up to mind. And I think that, but there are like obvious things like, oh man, kind of like what you're saying, because this is basically Kingdom Hearts 0. This feels way more than any other Kingdom Hearts game, of the like side games that don't have a numeral after it. It is like, it feels the most mainline. It feels like the most like pertinent to know about. This is like, because it's like one of those things, like this game more than any other game in the side games outside, like if you miss this game and you go to 3, you're like, what is going on? Like literally, like this, there's so much that you're missing.
Well, this is like, to be fair, and I think this is where like some of the criticism you see comes in from people, is like, if you really want to know Xehanort, like the villain of the franchise, you need to play this game. And so I can see why people who haven't dug in, I think now it's a moot point, because the collections are just available everywhere. But they're all together. Exactly. At the time, I was like, unless you have a PSP, you're not going to learn about the most foundational like villain in the games. And I get where people come from there.
Yeah, because for me, like when it came out on PSP, I borrowed a friend's PSP and I borrowed another friend's copy of Birth by Sleep to play Birth by Sleep.
You got some good friends, man. Look at that.
You do what you got to do.
You got your connections,
that's how I had to.
Yes, sir.
That's how I had to do it. And yeah, I just think that like this I think out of all of the games, this is the game that gets the most benefit of it being like ported to another system.
Yeah.
Because like the PSP is just like there's not a whole lot to go back for on the PSP in general nowadays, and there's just some like technical things that really get improved to the point where you may not even know that they were an issue on the original PSP. Like when you're doing combat and you go into a command style or yeah, like on the PSP, it would just be like literally 15 full seconds of just them frozen waiting for the blade charge to load, like the command style to load.
Oh, for real?
And then yeah, dude,
There
it
were
was
some rough
crazy.
loading issues.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
Very
so
interesting.
when you saw like that
Okay.
orb of light on them when
Right.
they're like shifting into, yeah, that would be just like that for 10 to 15 full seconds.
That's tough. That
Yeah.
that UMD spinning over there, man. That UMD spinning, yes sir.
You'd
Yeah,
hear it in
no,
the
You
back
gotta
working
love
as
it.
hard as
Just
it could.
turning.
Yeah.
I was turning as hard as it can. Yeah. But
Exactly.
yeah, I definitely still like, with all that being said, like I still like appreciated the way that like this game, like you're right, like it didn't have like the platforming nature of like Kingdom Hearts 1 or like the openness of Kingdom Hearts of 2 and everything. But I enjoy that. I enjoyed at least like its linearity and like how it still cultivated the worlds that they were trying to emulate and different stuff like that, and like still made use of what the PSP could do. I really enjoyed the way the stories intertwined and how what you were saying were like even there were some parts of certain maps that you weren't able to access as one person, but then you could with another. Like Terra could go one way, and then Aqua would end up going a way that wasn't even like accessible to Terra, stuff like that. So I just thought that was really cool. I find it puzzling, and maybe there's an answer that you guys know, I don't know, but like why the game would even let you go a different order than Terra, Ventus, Aqua, because it seems like the story, like narratively, is like there's a lot of elements that are like, nah, like you should definitely play Terra, Ventus, Aqua. Like was there ever like a reason given, or just because hey, pick whatever you want? Like because it just seems like it just wouldn't work. Like I'm sure it'll probably work.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, it works. It's just it never. I just think it flows the best that way. Like
for sure.
You could do Ventus, Terra, and Aqua, I guess, but like there would be a point when you get to the Keyblade Graveyard, you're just like, what happened to Terra? Like they don't conclude like what happened to Terra unless you play Terra's story.
Right.
But like at least and like they don't do it with Aqua either, but at least they show Aqua and they show like something of the sort that makes it a little bit better. But no, I agree. Like I don't see like I understand the wanting to give the freedom of choice, and at the very least they order it the way that's kind of like, hey, this is kind of the order. But I agree.
Yeah, I don't remember. There might be an interview that Nomura or someone gave on this where they do say the intention there. I think to Cam's point, my best guess is like as they were creating this sensation of you can play from 3 different perspectives and what that allows for, I think that naturally leads to the idea of like, what if you experience things in different orders? And perhaps they just decided, well, why don't we just let people decide that if they really want to? Obviously, there is a clear way that I think we're all aligned on is the way to play it through. Yeah. But I think once you present that idea of you can experience it from 3 perspectives, it's like, well, what does experiencing it in XYZ order or YZX order allow for? And I think that probably is why it's like that.
But, and I'll also say, like, really, it's just the ending that, like, if you played it in a different order, feels a little bit jarring. Playing throughout the game, it's fine. It's more or less pretty self-contained. Yeah. Like, you do have interactions with Terra, with each other, but, like, nothing that's just like, oh, I wonder what he means by that. Like, I wish I played this one first. Like, nah, that doesn't really happen. But yeah, no, so I like that they brought back the princesses, or that they have like worlds for the princesses. I like a lot of the boss fights. I will say in general, the combat in this game is like really unbalanced. Like it's really good, but it's really unbalanced. Because they introduced the shot lock, which is great. Because the thing is, like, specifically with the bosses, because like Kingdom Hearts 2 specifically has this like revenge system where like if you combo and deal enough damage to an enemy, no matter how well you're doing, at a certain point they are going to attack back.
Right.
In Birth by Sleep, it feels like in most case, like it's not even a feel like it is the case. Like a lot of the bosses, like they just kind of take your hits and keep doing their thing. And like if you, especially for me who played through the game on critical, like if you even try to like overstep, you're dead. Like in a way that's not the same as Kingdom Hearts 2. Like I think that Kingdom Hearts 2's combat system is more or less perfect. I genuinely believe that. There are some things that are obviously better than others, especially once you get to know the system better. But this is like a whole nother. This is a whole like actual like problem, I would say. Especially because like one of the things we were talking about on the PSP is like aerial combat is just almost impossible because of just how
Oh yeah. Yeah.
grounded it feels. And I think it's because of the PSP that they just weren't able to make it work because of like the draw distance or something. I really don't know. I didn't look that much into it, but like yeah, jumping up in the air doing aerial combat is just like really really bad.
Yeah.
So whenever you're fighting a flying enemy, it's so annoying because you're just like, I can't get to you because you're, or like it's a pain in the butt to get to you because of just how this camera system works.
I just found it like jump, one hit, no matter what, I'm gonna go down to the ground and then jump. Well, that was the pattern. Like it was
That's
like
bad.
there was no like sustainability of like I can't just stay in the air like in Kingdom Hearts 2 where like I'm engaging in combat.
That's the that's the intention. It wants it to be an endurance. No, I do think it is probably at the end of the day a limitation of. I wonder how much the controls of the PSP as well came into that, where obviously things were a little bit limited. Different button combinations, all that sort of stuff.
Analog stick, like I don't know
and
if they
that little flappy thing that just kind of moved around the circle. It's like not even technically an analog stick. I forget what it's called. But yeah, no, I totally think you're on the money there, Cam. I think it's a game I still really love. I think it's fair to say it's one of my favorites in the franchise. I think it's one that I've probably had the most difficulty with playing both back then and now in terms of like challenge, but not in a way that it's like mastering my skill, but more just kind of a little bit it's funny, Kevin, as soon as you said the like jump, do one attack, jump, do one, it's like, oh, that pinged like a faraway memory from when I first played. Like that, not even my recent gameplay, but like playing back when it first came out, I was like, oh yeah, it was like a war of attrition basically against enemies sometimes. Yeah.
Like the sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kev. Go
the overall, like I really did end up liking the combat, and like definitely I feel you when you say like it's a little bit like you could say unbalanced, maybe broken, you could say as well in some cases of where like I feel like you can very easily like use the combat mechanics to cheese certain enemies, and I feel like there's a lot of ways to like skirt through different ways that are like using the shot lock, how you're invincible and stuff like that. There's just like a lot of ways that you learn over time. Okay, like I can definitely cheese this. The one thing that I think I gotta like give it some, or just not like a knock, but the one thing I thought of a lot was I forgot what was the mechanic in Kingdom Hearts 2 that I brought up that I said that I didn't use a lot. I forgot what that was, but I found myself in a similar vein with like this game as well with the D-Links. Like I feel like I never really used the D-Links, and like I just feel like sometimes I would. So the only time I would really use it is sometimes if my meter was down and I didn't have enough, AP, I would switch to that. Like if I needed to just do something like just on the fly. But a lot of times if my Kiraga wasn't charged up or whatever, I would switch to a D-Link that I knew had a healing capability. Or every time you switch to a D-Link, it fill up your health bar. So I would do that a lot. Like that was the only really tool that I would use it for. I wouldn't use it for the moves of the character that I'm switching to, So
yeah,
I don't want to like knock it, but I think like that could be a certain degree of like I just feel like again, like I wish I remember the mechanic in 2, but someone was saying that like like there just seems to be like just one or two just like one or two more mechanics in the combat system in 2 that probably like could have been removed and you wouldn't have noticed a difference. I feel like dealing to a certain extent is like that, but there was some good where I could feel, do a health bar 100% if I switch to someone and all that. So not completely
I wish
useless,
I
but I just
remembered.
use it differently. Yeah, I forgot what it was.
Because we
Was it the summons?
It
Yeah,
might have
was
been the
it?
summons.
Because the
think it
summons
might-
are real. Like I think that like
I think it might
for
have been the summons.
is
I don't know. I forgot.
I think this is for like all Kingdom Hearts games. There are like certain things that like certain mechanics that like don't seem like really necessary.
Yeah,
And I think that's like a pro, to be honest. Like I
That's
don't
fair.
think it's
Yeah.
about like in an action game. Like I don't. There are ways to go about it wrong, but like I think that having all these different resources to play with and just experiment is like really cool.
That's fair.
But I do think that like in Birth by Sleep, there are just I just think that in that game, I mean, Kingdom Hearts 2 has it. All the Kingdom Hearts games have it, I would say, except for like maybe 358 encoded. But like there are like just like objectively correct things to use, like Thunder Surge. Like Thunder Surge is
Mhm.
the like on the base level. What do you want to call it? Moves. I'm just gonna use move. I forget there's an
Okay.
actual term for it, but moves. It's broken because you just have a bunch of invincibility frames. You interrupt your enemies. Like so, my deck was like 4 Thunder Surges,
Yeah.
a bunch of magnets. So I just bring up my enemies and then normal Thundaga to just thunder them to death and then like heal. Like that's all my deck was because that was just like the way to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so outside of like certain boss fights where I kind of got like stuck and I had to like figure out another way for it to work, like when you're just fighting normal enemies, like that was just the way to go. It's kind of like just like reflect magic in Kingdom Hearts 2 is OP. So it's just like, all right, you're attacking me, I'm gonna use reflect magic and you're dead, like, or you're taking a lot of damage. And in Dream Drop there's a specific spell that's really broken as well. But yeah, I still think that like regardless of those issues, I still really like the combat in that game, and it is the like blueprint of how like Coded and Dream Drop Distance are designed moving forward. It's not like it has it's not like that it has shot lock isn't in those games, but like the deck system and like just creating like your own skills like that's the same thing
That
throughout.
continues because I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
it's a great way to
dope.
it's a great way to like not have the Sora kind of system, like the menu bar, while still having abilities in a way that makes sense and fits Kingdom Hearts. So yeah. And then so the other worlds we got Olympus Coliseum again.
Yes, sir.
We got which I know that you flipped out when we ran into our boy Zach.
When you heard that Crisis
doing his
Core music,
squats.
bro, it's the Crisis Core music. I was like, let's go. Yes, sir. That was fire. Very cool to see him. And
Yeah.
one little like story bit when he's like, hey, Aqua, like you're trying to, you're trying to cook something, this whatever. Like trying
Yeah,
to,
what you doing? What you doing later?
I love it. Yeah. Shout out to Zach. Mm-hmm.
And then we got we returned to Neverland with Peter Pan and the gang, or like I actually love how and I don't know if you noticed this, but I love how like in Terra's story a lot of his interactions are with the villains.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just like continues that idea of like Terra like falling to like the dark side, or like something like challenging the darkness within him and stuff like that. And I just really like that small detail where it's just like he is literally manipulated by Maleficent to take Aurora's heart. And yeah, I just think that is really cool. I think that even though like Terra is probably like my least favorite character of the three, I think his story is the most interesting. And I because we don't really get we get like a small taste of like what he's going through with Riku, but not not to the same level. And yeah, I really like that. And then we also get Deep Space, which is before Lilo and Stitch. You know, it's like the opening minutes of Lilo and Stitch.
I was
which,
like, this is
which is so disappointing.
Yeah.
Which is so disappointing because like for me, like currently, even if you want to consider Star Wars and Marvel, like Lilo and Stitch is still like in my top 5 requested worlds, like for Kingdom Hearts 4. Like if that could happen, like I still really want. Yeah, spoilers.
Yeah, I was gonna
we're not
ask,
getting.
I'm like,
Yeah, no, there's no Lilo and Stitch world. There's still no Lilo and Stitch world.
Oh, that's
So,
What would you want out of it if I could, just out of curiosity?
I guess the town it's
I
called
just
Hawaii,
wanna,
like
I
in
just
the
want to
show,
interact
right?
with those characters.
Yeah.
It's Hawaii. Yeah,
Yeah,
I just want to
Hawaii.
interact with those characters, as Sword and Goofy. Like have a day where they're surfboarding, like
Heck
Hawaiian
yeah.
roller coaster rides.
Yeah,
playing.
that'd be
Like,
fire.
come on, man.
I actually just heard that song for the first time in years, like, and it opened up like a
You just
chord
got
memory.
whiplash.
It was like,
You got
oh my god. Yeah, no, I think my guess is it's one of those things where it's like, well, we have, like, as silly as this is, it's like we have in Neverland, you do go near more like not islands, but it's more, or I suppose, you know, like we have like water-based areas and caves and seaside stuff, and I could understand them being, well, outer space is a different thing, and like this space station is really, so I think it's like, let's play off that and I guess the Stitch TV show more than anything. But I appreciate that I think this also ties into just like the gameplay side of it as well, not just the world, but it's like I appreciate that they try things even if not everything always works. I like, especially with the non-numbered games, I know we want to avoid saying like the side games, like the non-numbered games, they'll do a lot of different stuff or try a lot of different gameplay ideas or story ideas or whatnot. So I appreciate that they go there, even if it's not like what I would have wanted from that one too. Yeah.
Now, here's one thing that comes across all the stories that I just want to bring up now because I thought about it, because I'm sure we're gonna get comments if I don't bring it up in any capacity. But I never touched it. Like, did any of y'all touch the command board stuff?
No.
Like the board game stuff?
No.
I have played Birth by Sleep like so many times, and I never like I was introduced to it, and I was just like, I'm not going to do this. And I never did it again. So if you were hoping to hear talk about that, I'm sorry. I honestly probably should have tried it out just to talk about it for the podcast. I dropped the ball on that one. But we're not talking about that at all. So sorry for the 10 of y'all that were maybe looking forward to hearing us talk about that.
Do we at least know like what it's for? Because like
I think it's supposed to help level up your skills faster or your commands faster.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but it's just like go to the last world and just like do a few rounds against the enemies, and then you'll get to level 4 really quickly. Like by the end game, like you can level up stuff so quick.
Shout out to end game, those tornadoes. You get some enemies lifesaver. Oh man, shout out to them.
Yeah, I feel bad because it's like, oh, it's a thing in the game. Again, like me pointing to, I like that they try new things. I think I maybe interacted with it a little bit when I first played, but man, now it's like, I don't think this last go around I really engaged with it at all. And it's one of those things where the game works fine without it.
It was
okay.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
It was very much like one of those like when I tried to customize my gummy ship, you know? And I just couldn't. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm good. You know what? I like this ship. Look, it looks.
Listen, I love the gummy ship.
It's a fine
I love
ship.
the gummy ship. I do not customize it.
I'm not gonna try that. Like, no, I'm good.
That was the thing that was so nice about Kingdom Hearts 2. Was just like they had a bunch of different models. I'm like, this is the way to go.
I really try. I think there was one. I don't think it was the time we played for the podcast. I think it was my playthrough before that, where I like really tried to commit, and I'm like, I'm gonna play the gummy ship. I'm really gonna get into design. And like 30 minutes in, I was like, nah, I don't need to do this right now. I'm good.
Design
and just sometimes sometimes you don't vibe with part of the game, and luckily, like we're lucky enough here where I think like you can experience what Birth by Sleep has to offer. And for me, at the end of the day, it is the story side of it, and I think the way it plays with perspective and tone, and like to your point, Cam, just to not to like double back too much, but in terms of it feeling real Revenge of the Sith vibes, like just Xehanort being almost like the Palpatine to Terra from the beginning, and then as you said, like him being involved with the villains throughout his story, I think is like such a great touch that is different from the other two. And I think they play all in really interesting bespoke ways, even if it's engaging with the same worlds and the same mechanics broadly. Yeah.
And then the other few worlds we have Toontown, or is like Disney Town. Is it just called Disney Town? I think it's called Disney
I
Town.
think Disney Town. Yeah.
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 And it's basically kind of like the Winnie the Pooh of the game, right? It's kind of like all mini games. Some of the like the mini games were fun. Like
Oh yeah.
I like the mini games, and I'm not trying to like put any disrespect on any mini game world, because like I love Winnie the Pooh like so much. So, but that's what that world is, and it is what it is. There's the kart racer. There's the ice cream. You're just trying to like, it's like a rhythm game actually, right? You're trying to shoot the ice cream, and then it's like a
like
kind
tennis
of like a
fruit?
volleyball. It's
Yeah,
it's like a
volleyball
tennis
fruit.
soccer game. Yeah, yeah. All of them fun. And then there's a point where everyone ends up in Radiant Garden before it's Hollow Bastion.
Yep.
Later turned to Hollow Bastion. And for Terra, his main thing is interacting with Braig, who is someone who looks awfully a lot like Zigbar, who is, and then you kind of like put two and two together, and Braig is, or Zigbar is Braig's nobody. And basically you find out that Braig has made some sort of deal with Xehanort, and it is something that's worth mentioning. I'm not gonna explain it,
Okay.
but it is worth mentioning that when you first meet Braig, his eye color's brown, but later in the same story in the game, his eye turns yellow. Just that is a thing. That is a thing that you want to, that like, if you want to start theorizing stuff, Kevin and listeners who are playing for the first time, that is a thing.
And that happens like
I'm
off
correct.
screen, right? Like when
Like
when he
it
comes
happens
back later,
off screen, and then like the next time he comes, like yeah, it's like there's one scene and then another scene.
Okay.
He has the yellow eye. I'm correct about that, right, Jonathan? I'm not crazy.
Yeah. And to fully understand it, Kevin, you'll have to go play the game where Zigbar goes contact lens shopping. And
I see.
everyone's favorite entry in the whole franchise. And yeah, you'll really come to understand it. No, it's a good call. Definitely worth, I guess, keeping an eye on. Sorry for that terrible pun.
Yeah.
Why did I do that?
And then you basically like find out like how that Braig lost one of his eyes because of, or assumedly, because I'm getting into big brain stuff now. Assumedly lost his eye fighting Terra. And then there's a point where Terra goes to the Keyblade graveyard after Master Xehanort requests him, and he is just doing his whole manipulation stuff, talking about Ventus, how Ventus is in I think this is mentioning like how Ventus is in trouble or something like that, and then I think there's a point where he runs into Vanitas too, right, during the story. I forgot when.
So.
And Vanitas is this boy in a mask, and his fighting stance is similar to Riku's. And I definitely know there's a point in the story. Y'all, it's been a minute since we finished the story. I don't want to hear any like y'all fake fans bullshit in the comments. I don't need to hear it. I don't need to hear it.
The upside here too is hopefully if you're listening at home, you've played.
Yeah.
So
you know.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like those those people that like you know who you are. Don't be like that. Because I don't remember everything all the time. So but yeah, and because there's a point where so it's before Radiant Garden, because when Ventus mentions him, he's like, you saw the boy in the mask, and he's like shaking him, kind of like that type of thing. But yeah, Master Xehanort, Keyblade Graveyard, manipulating him, yada yada yada, calls him Master Terra, and he's just like, oh shit, I'm a master now. Like that really got to him. and then eventually, and then what happens is Terra goes back to the land of departure, and as he is arriving there, he sees Master Ericus about to strike down Ventus. And then there's a literal boss fight with Master
That
Ericus
was fire.
because which is just so
Sick,
good. It's
sick,
so good.
Sick boss fight. Very, very
And he
fire.
just, this whole thing where like Ericus feels like he is failed Terra, that he's failed himself on just the idea of just like there can only be light and there can't be darkness. And yeah, and then Terra defeats Master Ericus, and Ericus apologizes for everything that he's done, and as he collapses into Terra's arm, he sprinkles away into motes of light, like top
Crushing.
10 moments in video
Yeah.
game, like just like
No,
that,
it was-
shot
yeah.
that shot when he's just like holding him and he's just gone. It's just wow, every time chills dead inside.
Yeah, it's one of those moments that has stuck with me since the first time I played, is like a moment from the franchise, and I think one for me where especially we're not lacking for interesting characters in this franchise, but I've always been like, oh no, I wanted more of him. Like it was one of those deaths too where I was like, I really am interested in this character. I wish we were like
Yeah.
it makes sense and it works really thematically within the story, but it's also one of those where it's like, I'll take his side story, give me his spinoff. Like let's go there too.
And
I'm into this dude.
Yeah, and it's cool because like well, that's not 100% true, but like proper deaths in Kingdom Hearts come far and few between. And like that was a proper death. Like that
Yeah.
was like, Ericus is dead. And outside of like Ansem the Wise in Kingdom Hearts 2, I think that's the only other like deaths later in the series. Like I think those are the only like two that I can think of off the top of my head. And like that's saying something. So when something happens that looks and feels that like finite, like that that is the end, it just hits really hard. Especially just knowing like how like what Terra's been going through this whole story, and all the themes that his story is about. And then basically everyone comes to the Keyblade graveyard for one less bout against Master Xehanort and Vanitas. Terra goes up and it looks quite similar to the secret ending of Kingdom Hearts 2, where the
Yeah.
three of them walk up and
I know it's
were you
the-
just like, oh my god, this is it?
I was
You're
like, oh
"This
wait,
is
I was
it!"
like, yo, yeah. That was
yeah.
that was my like big pop. I was like, oh wait, okay, this is what it was teasing. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
So and yeah, so basically, you go up there, you go up to like there's this giant like rock that just ascends from Master Xehanort, and you're going up there to fight. You fight Xehanort and Vanitas at the same time, and then you end up fighting Master Xehanort on his own,
Mhm.
and then he ends up while Terra is distracted, releases his own heart to be transferred to Terra's body.
Mhm.
And then he takes Terra's body, and then Terra's will, a lingering will, if you want to go that route,
I'll allow it.
exists in Terra's armor, and you take down Xehanort for one last time, and then this is the thing that's kind of weird, is that like the lingering will just kind of / Terra basically just like gives up after defeating Xehanort. Like he doesn't know for certain that Ventus and Aqua are gone, right? Like he just kind of like goes into that position that you find him if you fight him in Kingdom Hearts 2, and then it hits credits, and that's the end of Terra's story. And so like that's, and I honestly I didn't even think about that until just now. I was just like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
you just see this is like, ah, I failed. I will save you again one day, and just like goes into his stance.
Yeah, I found his ending like very much kind of abrupt. Like, okay, like, all right, I guess.
Yeah,
And like, I guess it's fitting because like, you know, it's the first one that you're supposed to or you're meant to play if you're going in that order. So when I beat it at like 2 a.m. one morning. You know, like it was like okay, like I bet there will be more context and more answers in the other two playthroughs. But yeah, it was very much abrupt. But I think I liked his end boss fight. I think the best out of the three. I feel like I feel like I feel like Terrace was like the most fun. But
yes,
I don't hate the other two. You know what I'm saying? But I
yes,
just feel like Terrace was more memorable. You know what I'm saying? Like overall,
you're not
like,
wrong.
Yeah, good.
But like the real final fights are in the final and secret episodes. Like
Okay,
those are
that's
like kind of
right.
like the more proper final fights.
Okay.
But you're not wrong. Like, and also one thing, huge thing I fucking missed. I am a fraud. There is a point in Terra's story where he wakes up on Destiny Island, and who does he run into? But a young Sora and
Fire.
Riku playing.
I didn't know if you wanted to save all this toward the end. I was like,
then,
okay, we
no,
will
no, we'll go each way. And one of my favorite moments in the series where Terra bequeaths the Keyblade to Riku. It's just so many parallels, just knowing where Riku's like what happened to Riku up, you know, in the future, and knowing that Terra is the one that bequeaths the Keyblade to him. And not only that, but it like for at the time, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself, but at the time, this was kind of the confirmation that like Riku was supposed to be the main character. Riku was supposed to be the protagonist, which is why he was able to take the Keyblade from Sora in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay.
Because he was, you know, and then we find out why Sora gets it in Ventus's story. Oh well, no, we don't even in the Ventus story at the like near the very end of the secret episode or something like that is when you find out how Sora can wield the Keyblade. And then yeah, and that's Terra's story. And then we get to Ventus, who basically it, you know, when he shows up to the land of departure, he's like a shell of a person. You basically find out like later in the story that Xehanort basically removed all the darkness within Ventus and created which created Vanitas. And together when they clash, they will create the Keyblade, which is like the true Keyblade to end all Keyblades. and but Ventus, you know, he looks up to Terra a lot, and he goes to follow Terra once he leaves the land of departure. And like as he's going throughout, like Vanitas is kind of continuously toying with him, giving him these thoughts that like he's a nuisance to Terra and Aqua, and that he serves a bigger purpose, and that it's an inevitability that we're going to have to fight and like create this Keyblade and yada yada yada. And there's a point where he's fighting Vanitas at the Keyblade graveyard, and then he meets Mickey. And this is the first time, I believe this is the first time we run into Mickey in the game. I don't think Terra ever runs into Mickey.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, which is cool, because like that's like, again, like especially with the D-Link stuff, like you get D-Links from different characters in each story, which I really like.
Yeah.
And abilities, like because Ventus like is the one that hangs out with Peter Pan. And so because he's hanging out with Peter Pan, he gets the glide ability, which you don't get with Ventus with Terra or Aqua, which is really cool. And yeah, I just I think Ventus is, the thing that I like about Ventus is that he's very different from Roxas. Like we get the whole thing that they look alike, and You'll find out why Roxas looks like Ventus later, but
Okay, so
I
there
just
will
like
be an answer to
how
that.
there is an answer to it in the
Okay.
game. You just kind of had to do the math, but I'll explain it for you like when we get there.
Okay.
It'll be later.
Okay.
But you know, it's just like Roxas is a lot is kind of more, you know, he cares about his friends, but he's a pretty stern and upfront person, while Ventus is a more like uh playful, a little bit naive. Um he's a kid, you know, he's like a kid in the sense of what you think of a kid. Um
He's the little brother of the group.
yeah,
Like in
exactly.
the
He's the
trait.
little brother of the
He,
group.
yeah.
Exactly. Especially with like not knowing a lot of like who he is leading up to that point, stuff like that. It makes sense that he's a little bit more childish than the other like adolescent characters in the series. And yeah, and like, you know, when it comes to combat, he's a little bit, you know, he's like the fastest of them, right? But he's kind of the weakest because of it. And then while Terra was like the strongest, but he was the slowest, which is so annoying because like when you fight Zack as Terra, like on a harder difficulty, that fight sucks because he's so slow, and so he has problems dodging his attacks. But yeah, and yeah, and basically like a lot of Ventus's stuff I think really plays a part when you get to the end of the story and the the secret ending stuff of like what his role plays into the series at large at this point. Like a lot of the story up to that point is just kind of him just going on these little adventures and then just eventually running into someone. I think that Ventus's story is like the at least the story as in like what you experience in that playthrough isn't that great. Like I think it's probably the weakest of the three. But I do think that the final fight, like when you fight Benitez, is really cool, and like how you're basically like you guys basically are in this like void
Mm-hmm.
fighting each other at the end, and you have to like use the command style or whatever to win, and uh, it's just like a very different kind of final boss, which was really really cool. And also when we see, I think this happens in the actual like Ventus story, we see Benitez's face, and would you have it? He looks a lot like Sora.
Oh, about that. No, yeah, Kevin, I'd love to hear from you two on this. I think for me, Cam, I'm pretty similar in terms of like, I think Ven's story is the thinnest of the three. Probably has some of the like has very big implications wider in terms of who his character is. I think it is he does feel like, and I think it leads a little bit into that sense of like why to me it's just like, oh, he's the little brother, is like his story kind of trails the others. Like he's a little bit more not a plot device, but he is like at the mercy of the other characters, both good and bad, in a way that I think Aqua and Terra, because they're older, because they've experienced more, like have a little bit more agency. And he kind of, to your point, Cam, like has a little bit more naivete. He's dealing with very important character stuff at the end of the day that does really matter and impact stuff in such a major way. But I do think, yeah, to your point, and I think that's why he also works so well as a middle chapter, because I think if you started with him, you'd be like, oh, what's the big deal about the wider story here? Or like, what if you played that at the end? I don't think it would be a satisfying ending of the three as much. And so I think he's well situated, both like mechanically and narratively in there. But I do agree, like his story is sort of has some really big moments, but the through line of it is like the one I least, I guess, like not care about, but the one that least like sticks with me, I suppose, by the end.
Nah, definitely. And like you, brought up like what I was gonna mention, where there's a lot of times where you know, like I think in the beginning, Ventus wants to initially go with Terra and go with
Yeah.
him, right? And then Terra
Yeah.
says no. Aqua keeps telling him, "Hey, go back to Master
You
Ericus.
yeah, go
Like,
to your
don't.
room.
Yeah. Like so, like he's constantly like being told, you know, what to do, and it weighs on him a lot, you know. And like through his and like he has like a bit of a mini kind of arc where, you know, he comes to terms with, hey, like, okay, like I understand, like, you know, why it was said, even if I didn't like enjoy, quote unquote, being like ordered to do certain things that I didn't want to do. You know, like he has that little arc in his story that I actually really enjoyed. You know, but I'm with you both where like my favorite was Aqua. For sure. I mean, granted, like I think
Aqua is
yeah,
the favorite normally.
Aqua's the one, and I think there are like, you know, reasons as to why like I really like Aqua's storyline, but I think a part of it also maybe it might be because like this is your third time through this story, so I feel like have a better grip and better notion of what is going on overall, right? So when you get to Aqua's, like it's easy to see, you know, where things are locking into place and stuff like that, and you're getting like a bit of like a finality point of when you're having a lot of these things kind of come to their end and you get the full context and stuff like that. But yeah, like Ventus, I just thought was cool. That wasn't my favorite one. I think I would probably put him in third overall of like enjoyment, but not like totally bad, you know. And is there an answer in this game as to why Vanitas look like Sora, or is that for a future game?
It's kind of the same thing as something that I'm going to.
Okay,
it goes hand in hand with something that I'm going to talk about later.
All
yeah,
right, cool,
yeah.
Cool.
Which kind of it kind of that kind of like helps when it first came out and people like didn't know for certain, like at the time, like that was like kind of like the first piece of the puzzle, and then like when the second piece happened, like, oh, so that's why this, and then therefore that's why this, like if that makes sense.
Okay.
But yeah, so Aqua is basically tasked with bringing Terra home. That is why she's going out, and which it's funny because there's definitely times where she runs into Terra, and then Terra's just like, all right, I'm out, and then she's just like, all right, I'm gonna keep going. It's just like,
yeah, it's
what's
like,
it?
Yeah,
Your task was,
are you supposed to bring her back home? Yeah,
you had one job. You had one job.
But then the game would have been over, so you have to.
Yeah,
it's true. Shout out to Aqua's moves, yo. Her abilities, her move, really fun gameplay. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed her gameplay. I feel like she had like the best like crowd control abilities when you're handling like a lot of different unversed at once and stuff like that, and a bunch of different enemies. Like I really enjoyed her stuff. I think one of hers is it Spell Weaver? Is that one of her forms? Where she's doing like a mix of
that's her main command style. Yeah,
dude, so fun.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Very fun.
It's definitely like the best of the three like main ones because there's like critical impact, fever pitch, and then spell weaver. Yeah. And then basically like, you know, her story leading, it's really like the end stuff with Aqua that like makes her so at least in my opinion, makes her so beloved. Her story is kind of like similar to Ventus's, is kind of by the books until you get to the end, in my opinion. And but the one thing that is worth of note, which answers a few things, answers a few questions, is when she goes to Radiant Garden and she meets a little girl named Kyrie.
Yep.
And so, because we knew that Kyrie came to the island at a younger age, like she wasn't born and raised there like Sora and Riku,
right?
And so she just like appeared one day basically, and when they meet, if you notice it, Kyrie puts her hand on Aqua's Keyblade, which indirectly bequeathed her the Keyblade, which is why she was able to use a Keyblade in Kingdom Hearts 2 when Riku gives her one. That is why she was able to wield it.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
And then also Aqua puts a spell on Kyrie's necklace.
Yes.
And that spell is what led her to Destiny Island. The theory, I don't know if it's theory or if it's been confirmed, but at the very least, theory is that like when Radiant Garden was being attacked and turned into Hollow Bastion, the spell took her to Destiny Island to protect her because it was a protection spell.
Yeah, I forget if it's ever explicitly said, but that's at least always been my
That
reading.
yeah, that is like
Yeah.
yeah, that is. The
I don't
main,
know if someone says this happened because of that, but
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
Yeah.
But they do say that she just like appeared up on the beach one day. Like they say something along like close to those lines. So
That's the exact line.
oh, okay. And yeah, so that's how Kyrie ends up on Destiny Island and all that stuff. And then I'm trying to think. Oh, every Terra Ventus and Aqua, they all win the award at Disney Town. You find that out in Aqua's story, which is another reason why you should do Aqua last. Like you find out the like imagine doing that, like you know the winners, like wait, Ventus I've not done that story yet. And yeah, and then when you and then we get to the battle with the Keyblade Grid. Oh well, I mean, we know that Aqua meets Mickey as well. And you know, I think Aqua and Mickey like have the closest like connection throughout the three of them. But like it's really just Mickey's training with Yen Sid, but he kind of like went off on his own to try and do his own thing. And like the gem or whatever that he carries to travel is like unstable, so he'll like travel randomly. And it's like it's cool when you do those little team ups with Mickey. And then yeah, go to the Keyblade graveyard. You end up fighting first you end up fighting Vanitas. Which is cool because he's like surfing on the Keyblades and stuff like that. Which is honestly really impressive. They got that to work on the PSP.
Oh yeah.
Like I really like am surprised by that. I don't know how it looked. Remember how it looked originally on the PSP? Like if there was like frame drops galore,
probably like
but,
5 seconds,
but still really cool.
There were a third as many Keyblades on screen. It was yeah, I don't remember either. I'll let myself believe it looked pretty cool, and I'm sure it did to some extent. But it's as a visual, just like the fact that they even attempted that back then is like, yeah, you did some cool stuff.
I really want to see how that magic mirror fight looked on PSP.
It was frame droppy, but it wasn't like terrible. It wasn't terrible.
Okay.
But that a good fight. Like
that's
the boss fights in this, the boss fight in this game. These games are pretty
solid.
Yeah,
it's really
the
good.
one with the Maleficent Dragon fight that was really cool because like there was actually a point in that game where you have to like team up with Prince Philip. Like he has the shield up and you have to hide behind him, and then he launches you up and strike. Oh, dude, so cool.
It's sick. It's sick. It's sick.
Yeah. And yeah, fight Vanitas, and then you fight Bragg, and after fighting Bragg, I believe she ends up straight up in the I feel like she either wakes up in Radiant Garden or the Realm of Darkness.
I'm blanking on the exact order.
I know. I'm like,
how
does Aqua's story end? I forgot. But anyway, we're gonna figure that out. But what I do know is what happens in the final and secret episodes, because I made sure to look into all that and remember everything before we started recording. So basically, this is where all of the oh my god moments happen. This is the meat. And it sucks because it's only like an hour worth of cutscenes, but it's so good. So basically, Aqua takes Ventus to the land of departure, and as she's exploring through, she's going through the land of departure. There's this monologue or this discussion that Master Ericus had with her when she got chosen as the master. She passed the mark of mastery, and basically said to take, if anything happens to this place, take his Keyblade and basically hide this place away.
Yeah.
So she goes to his chair, and there behind it is a keyhole, and she puts, she does the whole Keyblade thing, and the land of departure turns into Castle Oblivion.
Fire. Yeah.
So good.
Oh
Yeah, I was
my
like, oh,
god,
shit.
dude!
Yeah, that was a big
Dude,
like, oh
the
shit.
first time I was just like, it makes so much sense, but I was just so blown away. Oh, it was
Yeah, that was fire.
what a perfect reveal. I was just like, where's this going? Like, what is this? And then you see the Castle of Oblivion, and so that's why people haven't been able to find what do we know at this point in the story if people are trying to find Ventus? Anyway, people are trying to find Ventus, and
Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
yeah, and they can't find him because he's in Castle Oblivion. He's hidden away. So that's great. And then after that, Aqua ends up in Radiant Garden, runs into newly body taken Terra Nort, is what we call him. So Xehanort and Terra's body. They have a boss fight, and it's also worth noting that Terra Nort has the same guardian behind his back as Ansem does, the final boss in Kingdom Hearts 1. So just that is something similar to the eye thing.
Okay.
Something to kind of keep thinking about. And then after that happens, there's this kind of conversation that happens between Riku and Sora on the main island, where they're just kind of talking and more or less thinking that like maybe they have a bigger, it's kind of like where they start talking of the idea of leaving the island and kind of like having that they might hold a bigger purpose than where they are here, because they have that idea that like all these stars are different worlds that they could travel to and that kind of stuff. And then Aqua ends up in the realm of darkness, and then probably and then at the very end of the final episode, it's in the oh my gosh, what is it called?
What part are you thinking?
The stained glass. I know what it's called. Dive into the heart. Dive into the heart.
Yeah.
And it's a young Sora with a little mote of light that is Ventus, and it's basically him coming to Sora saying that and Sora's like, basically, you can stay with me.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And that's how that ends. So basically the kind of reveal is that Sora can wield the Keyblade because Ventus
that's why
he's sleeping inside of Sora.
Okay.
And that's why Sora looks like Venus looks like Sora, because it was kind of it's kind of even for Kingdom Hearts, it's kind of Kingdom Hearts bullshit, but it's kind of like the idea of like this was already because they already had like a somewhat connection with each other, but like they weren't, but it wasn't to that point yet where like Ventus like met Sora and like it slept inside of him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a little like chicken and eggy of like sort of snake eating its own tail of like, oh yeah, this kind of came before that, but
correct us if we're wrong. That's something that like I'm not 100% sure on.
That is my memory of it too.
But by my memory of it, it was just like you had that reveal and you're just like, oh crap, and then this happened. It's like, oh okay, so that's why this, but also why would this happen before? But yeah, because I'm pretty sure throughout the base game there were like kind of short cut scenes where there was like some connection of sort happening between Sora and Ventus. So anyway, so
I've always just to like kind of dip in there, I've always taken it as and maybe we can talk about it more broadly at the end, but like I for me, prequels are really hard to do right, and I think Birth by Sleep does a lot right. Without it, it's obviously fan servicey, but it doesn't feel like it's being done for the sake of fan service. And I think the way the Birth by Sleep trio connects to The
trio.
original trio is it's sort of leaning into the idea of destiny at play and larger
Right.
forces and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind
Yeah,
of where I think
yeah,
the Vanita stuff always was like, I'll let it pass because it kind of is like, well, Ven was always meant to be linked with Sora.
yes. No, I agree with that. That's definitely fair. And then the secret episode happens, and during this slew of cutscenes, there's a little conversation between Terra and Xehanort inside of Terra's body, basically being like, "I will escape, I will defeat you," that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Not a whole lot going on there. Um, let's see here, and then there's like this, because basically, um, in the final episode, Ansem the Wise and some of his assistants, which are like Dylan, who is Zaldan's
Nobody.
no somebody,
Oh,
yeah,
somebody.
um, and like other former organized, people that like will eventually become their nobodies will become an organization. 13. They find Terranort's body after the fight with Aqua, and Terranort doesn't remember really anything outside of his name, which he says is Xehanort. Um, and but yeah, so then after that,
Ansem and
and
Aqua.
yes, which is like one of the best moments in all of Kingdom Hearts right here. Is this we're now the weird thing about this whole thing is that like it's happening at different points of the timeline, because like this stuff is all still pre Kingdom Hearts 1, and then we get to this scene where Ansem the Wise specifically is sitting up on the beach of in the Realm of Darkness, like where Riku and Sora were at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2,
Mm-hmm.
and Aqua walks up after being trapped in the Realm of Darkness for 10 plus years, because we're now post Kingdom Hearts 2. That's where this scene is taking place. And he's basically conversing with Aqua, saying that like mentioning about this hero who travels worlds and brings the light and all these things. Also, completely forgot to mention that Aqua meets Sora and Riku at Destiny Island 2, and Sora's in her story,
Mm-hmm.
and she decides not to bequeath the Keyblade to Sora, but notices that uh, Riku was bequeathed,
Yep.
and she assumes it was Terra. Um, and yeah, so basically having this conversation, talking about this boy who's traveling worlds, and saving these worlds from darkness. And she's like, "Oh, is this person's name Terra or Ven?" He's like, "I don't
Yeah.
know." And he's like, "No, I don't know those names." And then it's just like a very like meta moment, right? Where it's just like, uh, the it's like all the main characters in their own respective scenes, basically looking out in the sunset, looking up to the sky, and just saying Sora.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really great scene. Like you should really like give it a watch. If you should rewatch anything of what we're talking about, this is the scene to watch. And it's just like everyone saying Sora, 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 and then you just see like you only see like the bottom half of Aqua's face, and she's just like a tear going down her face, and she's like literally on like crying, and she's just like Sora, like just like 'cause she knows like that who Sora is, and there's this like idea, even when because like when she got trapped in the realm of darkness, you know, there was a point where she's like looking at her wayfinder, and she just has this she says this line. It's kind of like something along the lines of like there's always a way. It's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like, and that's how like her story actually I think that's how her story or the final episode actually ends. And it's just kind of that idea that like that idea of hope, that there can always be something or someone that can like stop this, or like that can save people, and like uh in the situation that she's in, like in general. And like this was kind of like the uh very quick but very affirming realization to her, like the justification of her hope, you know. um which, yeah, I just found like really really touching, and again, like I think it's one of the best scenes in the series. And yeah, but then after but then after all that, we reverse back in time to where Aqua's still in the, she just gets in the realm of darkness, and she's like travel, you know, and you play through the realm of darkness for a
Yeah.
bit, and then you come across Cinderella's castle in the realm of darkness, and that's how it ends. And it ends with like they're basically teasing that there's going to be a sequel to Birth by Sleep Volume 2, which never happened. Like Nomura legitimately like wanted to do this, but they just couldn't make it work. They couldn't have the put in the time, because this is at the point where he was really starting to work on like Versus 13, that later turned into Final Fantasy 15. Then he ended up leaving that project, and like all of that hubble um but we do get a small, very small taste appetizer of like what that was going to look like in zero point 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage, which is like kind of like the prologue to Kingdom Hearts 3 later on. And that is all starring Aqua as
Okay.
well.
Cool. Okay. Cool.
So yeah,
Cool.
so and that also does, like, you know, despite it being a small thing, it does kind of answer some questions as well, like that took place like right during Kingdom Hearts 1, if that makes, because they kind of like coincide with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
um but yeah, you know, like in general, like I still think that this is the best Kingdom Hearts game that isn't Kingdom Hearts 2. I think that it answers a lot of like a lot of questions that Kingdom Hearts fans had at the time after 2, in ways that made a lot of sense, and like they were very satisfactory answers. And then also just giving us a lot of revelations that we just like, that didn't need to be a thing, but are now, and like they're great. Like, you know, like the whole stuff uh with like Riku and being bequeathed the Keyblade, and like you know, other things like that, that's just like, we didn't need answers to that, but I'm happy that we did, because it made the story more interesting, and it made it better.
Yeah.
um you know, so I you know, it's one of those things, like realistically I don't know if I, just because of like the technical issues that I have with Birth by Sleep, I don't know the next time I'm going to play Birth by Sleep, but like it is still my second favorite. And I like, there's a lot of stuff that you just only get in this game compared to the rest of the series, and that just kind of like emphasizes even more the idea of like, this is Kingdom Hearts 0. This is a mainline Kingdom Hearts game that they just decided to put on the PSP. And that be, you know, it could have been better in a different life, but still like phenomenal game, one of the best PSP games, one of the best Kingdom Hearts games. And yeah, I really love it. And um it really is like the beginning of like the second half of this story. Like Kingdom Hearts 2 and 358 were kind of like the conclusion of like part 1 of this saga, and then Birth by Sleep is like the first part of part 2, because we now know like who Xehanort is, we know who the main threat is. We don't know how they're going to come into play yet moving forward, but we know what their like goals are, what they're striving to do, and what Sora and gang need to, or like are going to end up going up against. Kevin, what did you think?
Yeah. No. I really enjoyed the game. You know, especially from like a gameplay standpoint, and like I just love like I said before, how these three different point of views interplay with each other. I like what you get to do in certain chapters that you don't with other characters, or that you don't with other characters and stuff like that. And like I really like the overall like lore that this game does give you, right? And kind of like backstory of, you know, telling certain things that, oh, okay, like that's why this is that and all that. My main thing is, yo, where do we go from here? Because are we, because Aqua's down there, yo. You know what I'm saying? Like, are we gonna get her out? Like, is she there forever? Like, what's up with that? You know, that's where my main, contention is, all right, like Aqua can't stay there, right? She can't stay there. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. That's my hope that and like you bring up like this nature of like this is like the second, wave, not wave, but like the second half of this overall story, right? So I know this is a prequel, but like I also know that I think you play as Sora in Kingdom Hearts 3, right? Based off what I've seen. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like it's someone else. So
No.
is there gonna be a notion of like these three groups like coming together? I'm not sure how feasible that is, or maybe it's just Aqua. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at. Yeah, I think it's gonna be like a really cool like a bit like Avengers like Endgame type of mentality when like we have like everyone if it comes to pass, or if it's just Aqua, like I'm cool with that. But like I would love to see these conversations with Terra and Riku have a chat. If Ventus is able to somehow get out of Sora, right? Like they have a little chat. Kyrie and Aqua in the same extent. Like I think that'd be cool. But all else, I just want Aqua to be safe. that's where I'm at.
I won't say who, but like there are characters in the past, and Nomura said on record that he was planning on like keeping them dead, but like he is very much willing to succumb to fan service, like
Right.
and that's it can be a good thing and a bad thing. In certain instances it's good, in certain instances it's bad. And I think we'll talk to we can talk about that a little bit more once we get to like later games in the franchise where I think it's more prominent. But yeah, I like you have some good theories. I'm not gonna say whether you're right or wrong.
Okay.
I will say that and we're not closing things out just yet, but I will say that the next game is unfortunately the most uneventful in the entire series, like
Oof.
by a wide margin.
What is
so
it again?
this is
I forgot.
it is Recoded. It is Kingdom Hearts Recoded. It's the other DS game. It's the other
so
DS
all those answers you're looking for, you're gonna keep looking for them.
Yeah. You got a few more games.
Okay,
And also,
okay.
we did get a continuation of the not the secret ending, but the final ending in Kingdom Hearts 2, where the bottle, the message in the bottle from Mickey is given to Sora, and we still don't know
Yeah, there's that.
what it's for, but we do know that there's a scene at the end where Riku basically goes up to Sora, who's sitting at their usual tree spot, asking if he's made up his mind, and he says yes, and basically they're off to go somewhere. And you'll find out where in a couple of games.
You gotta love it.
I'm not joking. You're not going to know for a couple of games.
I forget because we got Recoded and
then Dream Drop Distance.
Okay. And then we're going to 3.
Oh well, we got we got 0.2 plus we're gonna go over the back cover as well. We're gonna probably do both of those in the same episode just because they're too small. They're kind of two small things.
Okay.
And then we'll do 3, and then we're gonna talk about like all of the Union Cross, like Dark Road stuff, which is all mobile game stuff. We're not gonna really talk about the gameplay at all. We're just gonna talk about the story, because like I understand to a certain degree the criticisms about Kingdom Hearts story. That stuff is a whole nother thing. Like even for me, I'm just like, yo, there is a lot there, and I don't want to get too into the weeds because like this is kind of like just like an ongoing topic that, or like feeling criticism that I have about the story, which I know is kind of inevitable because I guess the best way to put it is I think I don't know exactly if he said on record, but Birth by Sleep feels like the first game where like Nomura had to figure out how to expand the story from where 2 and 358 ended, like, okay, this is a hit. We got to do more now.
Right.
How am I going to do this in a way that makes sense?
Okay.
And once we get to and Birth by Sleep was great, but once we get to some of these later games, it's very obvious that he's like kind of putting things in that, you know, even for Kingdom Hearts logic, isn't great to continue the story in a way that somewhat makes sense. And so yeah, that's all I'll say for right now. Once we get into a few more games, probably like specifically like Kingdom Hearts 3, that's when we'll like talk about that a little bit more. But I don't know if Jonathan has anything to add on about that, or if he agrees or disagrees with me, but and also just your general thoughts on Birth by Sleep.
No, yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. I think, yeah, we can. It'll be easier to talk about future stuff once we get there, because I definitely don't want to ruin the experience of certain aspects, but there's a lot that I think we can dig into about the realities of where things go from here. But no, yeah, I think Birth by Sleep, like I was saying earlier, I think prequels are really hard. I usually don't like them or think that they like justify their existence really well. But I think Birth by Sleep does really well. And I think it's, like you said, Cam, it's the first point where it goes beyond the scope of kind of what you expect from Kingdom Hearts, at least in terms of like the cast and everything, and to introduce all these new characters, to tie it in really well, to make us care about them, their story, and then make us care about it in the larger terms of the franchise. Yeah. I think it does all of that really well, and the fact that it did it on a PSP game and like the technical limitations aside, delivered a really solid game overall that is probably as close as you can get to a portable one like that. A Kingdom Hearts game. Again, I always wish, especially, you know, thinking about it in terms of like what could have been of Birth by Sleep 2 or whatever. It's like, oh man, I wish we could have gotten that. I wish we could have gotten the PS4, I guess, at some point eventually, version of that game. But all that said, I think a lot of what it introduces works really well. I think the cast and the ensemble are really interesting, and I think the ways it plays with the themes of the story work so well in a way that makes it feel fully featured in a way some of the other games don't. And to your point of it being like probably the most essential non-numbered game, it comes off that way. And it's one that 100%. Like, you know, especially when it comes to prequels, I'm never in favor of like start with the prequel, and I don't think you should start with Birth by Sleep. But it's one of those things. It's one of those things where, like, as an entry point for these characters and for their part of the story, I think it does that part really well. And yeah,
definitely. And man, Birth by Sleep is a good game. It's a really good game. Yeah. And yeah, I'm very interested because this is starting. We're starting to get to the point where, like, I think that, and we touched upon it again, so I'm not going to go too long about on it, but where Kingdom Hearts fans kind of are scattered on their opinions on like the direction of the story and like the decisions that are made, because I'm like, like, without getting into spoilers, there are some people that absolutely adore Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, there's some people that I know, and I think it's absolutely bonkers, like a bonkers take. I know people that like Kingdom Hearts 3 more than Kingdom Hearts 2. And I think that is an absolutely ridiculous take. And I love Kingdom Hearts 3. But like, and so there are like, we are getting to the point where like I am the most curious to see where you, Kevin, are going to lie on this spectrum.
Okay.
Because there's some people that will just always love Kingdom Hearts just because it's Kingdom Hearts. But then there are also like people that like are really into it for the story and like what they're doing and like how it makes sense, and like, there's just like, there's so many. I think that's, again, it's one of the beautiful things about Kingdom Hearts is that like more than probably any other franchise in video games, people love this franchise for completely different reasons, and they're all valid. And I think that like, these next few games, you're gonna like kind of realize what are the things that you really like about Kingdom Hearts and what are the things you don't like as much, and the things that like, and just like in general how you feel about the direction the stories the story goes.
Okay.
I'm very curious.
Is it like a thing of is it like a bit like are there two camps going forward from this point? Like, is it like there are people that
there
like,
are two main camps.
there are two main camps.
Like,
Okay. Yeah. Is it a bit kind of like a bit kind of like Star Wars fandom? Like kind of
no.
Okay, it's different.
No.
Different tone.
No,
Well,
like
they're okay.
No, people
Different
aren't going to
tone.
be saying slurs if you like the Last Jedi.
Well, no,
or just like the Last
obviously,
Jedi, or like
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
obviously,
but no,
yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying. Yeah, you know what I'm saying though. Like,
Right,
it's just
right,
like
right. Okay.
you know, again, like I have a good friend of mine, a good local friend of mine. He loves Kingdom Hearts 2 or Kingdom Hearts 3. He thinks it's better than Kingdom Hearts 2, and he thinks that like Kingdom Hearts 2 like gets passes on like some things that that he thinks are issues that I just don't agree with.
Okay.
But like
I see.
you know, but like and it's really a lot. It's not just like the story, it's also like how the combat's implemented in 3 and like versus 2 and like how a bunch of different things are implemented. Like 3 is definitely the most divisive game in the series. Like,
Interesting. Okay.
I would say. I don't know if you would agree with that. Because Jonathan, you gave it what, like an 8.5 or something like that? at
Yeah,
IGN?
somewhere around there.
And that's what I would rate it.
Um,
I would rate it an 8.5. Like if it was a 20-point scale.
Um,
It's still a great game.
But yeah, no, I think it's fair to say, especially in the fallout of it, yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely been some divisiveness. I do think it's tied to other games that we haven't talked about as well yet.
Yeah,
too.
yes, it
So
is.
it's harder to talk about in that context as well.
Yes.
But
That's why I
yeah,
said like
it's-
just moving forward, I'm very curious. Like Coded is more or less going to be like, well, that was Coded. Honestly, I don't even know what we're going to really talk about when it comes to Coded. But like, but
tie
like,
it in with something else if we need to.
yeah, exactly. But then like the Dream Drop is like the game where things start kind of getting weird. It gets weird.
Okay. Interesting.
Without getting into spoilers. And so I think that it'll be interesting to just kind of see how you took everything and the questions that you have and like how that's going to translate to Kingdom Hearts 3. Because like I know people that love Kingdom Hearts up to 3, and they compare it to like a bad breakup with like
Really?
like a girlfriend or something like that. Or like I know people that say like Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't exist because of just how bad they thought it was. And I'm like, okay, y'all need to relax.
Interesting.
But like I've seen tweets like that. Like I've
Huh.
seen people make statements like that. And like I get it. Like Kingdom Hearts 3 was in a sense a disappointment for me personally. But like I still think it's a great game. It just didn't do everything that I wanted it to do. And like that it can be both things.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so that's Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Next up, we have Kingdom Hearts Recoded for the Nintendo DS. Or if you really don't want to play the gameplay, you can watch the cutscenes in the collection and just do that. But we are going to be talking about the gameplay because the gameplay is probably going to be the only thing that's worth talking about in this game. So, you know, don't expect a super long episode for the next
Really
bout.
hyping up the next episode, Cass.
You're like, hey, listen, guys, next one gonna be a real shitter, guys. Like, like strap in.
You're setting expectations. You're setting. You're totally.
I'm
It's just
setting
really funny.
expectations.
Yeah.
This is
Out
a
of
remake
context,
of
it's
a
like,
this is a remake of a flip phone mobile game. Like this is not gonna be anything special. I'm just being completely transparent with y'all. But
I'm checking
you know, again,
I'm checking how long to beat really quick on that.
we're really going to try and make sure that this, you know, it doesn't take 6 months to release a new episode. Again, apologies for that. Again, hopefully Alexa will be with us next time. But yeah, so we got Kingdom Hearts Recoded next. I hope you all that are listening, thanks for sticking with us. I know it's been a long hiatus, but we're back and we're keeping the train going. Like we're never going to stop it until we get to all caught up. So, you know, but yeah. Hope you all take care, be safe, and may your heart be your guiding key.